Dogs in shelters can have a tough time. An old dog was going to be put to sleep, but then he did something that made the people trying to save him cry. What really upsets many animal lovers is that numerous animals don't get the love and care they deserve. Sadly, we can't help all animals in a big way, but each of us can make a big difference in one animal's life. In Texas, there are kind people who drive around to feed the animals on the streets. These animals lack food, medical care, and the love they deserve to be happy and healthy. By rescuing just one of them, you can completely transform that animal's life. Then there are individuals who devote their whole lives to aiding animals. They either establish shelters or work at these places to make sure they can assist as many animals as possible. Unfortunately, they can't always do everything they'd like, and some shelters must euthanize animals when they can't care for all of them anymore. It's a tough situation, but these people give their best to help pets lead their best lives. Some of these dedicated folks go out to find lost or lonely animals or help animals in bad situations. Our story today revolves around these compassionate people and the animals they help. One shelter in Texas that does the very best it can is the Bark Animal Shelter. They try to take in as many animals as they can, but they also don't have the funding to keep all these animals, and sometimes they have to choose which to keep and which have the best chance to be adopted. They got a call from concerned people about an older-looking large dog that was very thin and seemed weak, was living on the streets, and seemed lost. But he went up to people and looked like he loved humans and just wanted attention. They were worried that he was going to be run over by a car. A team quickly went out and searched for the dog. It took a few days to spot him, but finally, they saw him walking around the neighborhood. Many rescues take a lot of effort and can even be risky. They have to take time to build trust with the animal, or the dog won't allow them to get too close. They could build trust through food or snacks, or they might need to set a trap where they get a dog cornered, and then they can take the dog to the shelter. Even then, they have to make sure that the dog does not hurt itself or one of the people. It is normally a big production to get a dog safely to the shelter, but this time was really different. The rescuers got out of the car, and the large brown and black dog just came running up to them with his tail wagging. They were not going to need a lot of time or effort to get this dog to trust them. He was just a happy dog that seemed down on his luck. He was thin and dirty, but he didn't show them any aggression. They took him to the shelter and gave him a bath. Then they got him to be fat checked. He was such a sweet dog that they thought that he might just be lost. They checked him out and were ecstatic when they found that he was microchipped. They got his name from the microchip and found out that the dog was called Bear. He was already 11 years old when they found him, and since he is a big dog, that would make him senior. The chip also had a number on it for his human, so they hoped that they would find his home. Sadly, when they phoned the number, they found out that the owner had died and that new people had moved in. His owner didn't have any relatives in the area. There was no one who could take Bear. He would have to go to the shelter. They didn't know it at the time, but he was going to spend months there. They normally have a set time for a dog of a certain age to remain in the shelter before it gets euthanized. Since Bear was already such an old dog, they had little hope that he was going to find a home before his time ran out. It was as if they were all holding their breath, both the humans and the dog. As time went on, he became sadder and more depressed. The pictures of Bear in his enclosure in the shelter were just heartbreaking. Of course, the people who worked there tried their very best to give all the dogs love and attention, but their time is still limited, and Bear must have felt alone. The shelter would make sure to introduce the dog to all the people who came looking for a bigger dog to adopt, but as soon as they heard that he was 11 years old, they would get cold feet. In some ways, it makes sense. We all know that when we are adopting a pet, we are setting ourselves up for a serious heartbreak down the road. It is rare that our dogs outlive us, and we will have to deal with their passing somewhere along the line. When you get a younger dog, at least this fact is a bit farther down the road than when adopting an older dog. Other people are scared of the health issues that they might have to deal with if they adopt an older dog, despite the fact that young dogs can have just as many health issues and problems. Adopting an older dog can be rewarding. They can give a lot of love, and they will be grateful for the home you give them to live out their golden years. But despite that, it seemed like no one was interested in taking Bear home with them. People would meet the sweet dog with sad eyes and then decide that they would rather meet some of the younger animals in the shelter, or they would look at him in his cage and decide against him. That was because the dog was just lying in the corner of the cage, barely acknowledging people as they went by. The day he was set to get euthanized was getting closer, and somehow it felt like the dog understood this and became even more depressed. He didn't want to eat, and he didn't want to interact with people very much. Shelter personnel tried sitting inside his enclosure with him, but he didn't want to play with them. The most he would do was put his head on their laps for scratches. In the weeks just before his deadline, the shelter tried its best to get the dog adopted. They put in even more effort during that time for all the animals that were set to be euthanized. No one came forward to get Bear. Bear had completely retreated into his shell at that stage, and some of the volunteers wondered if this dog might just be missing his people or feeling sick, despite his health checks coming back positive, or that he could be in pain. Would euthanization be the kindest thing to do for the dog, even if it broke all their hearts? They weren't sure. But they did know that they would try their very best to at least give the dog the best last day that he could have. Most of the time, they were so busy running the shelter that they couldn't just play. But on the day that Bear was set to be euthanized, they were determined to play with him. They took him out to the yard, and that was when this big old dog did something that made all the rescuers cry. Suddenly, he completely transformed. Gone was the depressed and anxious dog. Bear was really happy to be outside and playing. He walked on the leash easily and played with them like a puppy. They were shocked to discover that he could give a paw and go fetch. This wasn't the same dog they had known. When he sat between them and gave them a big smile, they couldn't help but cry. This was all he needed, but there was only an hour left before he was scheduled to be euthanized. What could they do? Then, all of a sudden, the door to the yard opened and a family came out. They were specifically looking for an older dog and had heard that Bear didn't have much time left. After seeing how happy and sweet he was, they made their decision. With just an hour to spare, Bear found a new home where he could enjoy his remaining days in comfort. What do you think of Bear's story? Let us know in the comments section. I hope you liked this video. Please give it a thumbs up and share it with your loved ones. Also subscribe and press the bell icon to never miss the update from our channel. Thank you.